So most Gintama fans know that the series has a lot of historical influences, characters based on real historical figures or legends, the politics is very similar to mid to late 1800s Japan, and most characters are in the faction they were part of in real life. But when you look closely at history, then look back at Gintama, you start telling yourself, oh thank God it doesn't follow history entirely. So the aliens and future tech excluded, Gintama's history follows the real Japan's history, but only to a limited degree. I've been thinking of how different the series would have been and the amount of insane things that would have happened if Gintama followed history event for event. So let's take a look. What changes and how would it change? Of course there are a lot of differences, but I want to take a look at what I view as the three most monumental differences between history and Gintama. Starting from the top, the Yorozuya. Shinpachi wouldn't even be a part of it. In real life, Shinpachi Nagakura was a member of the Shinsengumi, and remained so until the end of the Boshin War, where he adopted to a life in New Japan. Imagine how different it would be if the Yorozuya only consisted of Kagura, Gintoki, and Sadaharu. If we were introduced to Shinpachi as a member of the Shinsengumi, all of his straight man routines would be used on Sogo and Kondo's antics, and the whole romance angle between Kondo and Otai would be even more awkward if they're part of the same faction. And how would the fans view the Shinsengumi if they have two seemingly plain characters in Shinpachi and Yamazaki? Would Shinpachi receive the same development under the guidance of Hijikata and Kondo? Would that alter his personality to a degree? If he's a part of the Shinsengumi, how does his interactions with Obi Hajime change if Gintoki isn't there to influence it? He never gets to fight Piriko in this timeline, never goes to Yoshiwara to help Seita and Hinowa, therefore not being there to stop Kagura's rampage. In that case, would Abuto have died in the fight against Kagura? He wouldn't have been there to help Kagura and Gintoki fight Kamui on Rakuyo. Does the Yorozuya still win that fight? As much as we like to joke about Shinpachi's lack of presence, he's pretty integral to a lot of the series' major moments. And if he's a part of the Shinsengumi, he would never get the chance to do a lot of the iconic things he has either done or been a part of. If all else remains the same, is he the same kind of guy by the Silver Soul arc that he could fight Utsuro head-on? The second major event change is that Nobume and/or Isaburo kills Sakamoto. Yes, the guys that loosely inspired Imai Nobume and Sasaki Isaburo, Imai Noburo and Sasaki Tadasaburo, confessed to being involved in the assassination of Sakamoto Ryoma, the real-life influence for Gintama's Sakamoto Tatsuma. Not only would this be heartbreaking, but it would change so much. This could only happen when the Mimoarigumi were posing as villains between the Thorny and Farewell Shinsengumi arcs. How would this assassination change Gintama and our views on Nobume and Isaburo? Assuming everything else stays the same, would the Yorozuya accept Nobume's help in the Courtesan of a Nation arc? I highly doubt it. No way Kagura would intervene on Nobume's behalf during her fight with Sogo in Farewell Shinsengumi. I wouldn't even be surprised if she takes Sogo's side in that fight. No sympathy would influence Kagura to stop that confrontation. Very few of the characters would feel bad for Isaburo upon his death, and Nobume would probably be a lone wolf in the following arcs, or potentially be closer to the Shinsengumi since they had less of a connection with Sakamoto and the Kaientai. Let's not forget Mutsu's role in this. She would be enraged. We're looking at a potential Mutsu versus Nobume fight to the death here. Aside from that, what direction would Mutsu take the Kaientai? Does she continue Sakamoto's traditions or make the Kaientai more militant to protect themselves from future attacks? The character dynamics would change so much if the Mimoarigumi characters followed their historical inspirations. We'd see a lot more fights, and Nobume would probably be a lot more solitary after the Farewell Shinsengumi arc. Also, let's think of Sakamoto's major accomplishments. Sakamoto is now no longer there to change Nobunobu's mind in the Rakuyo arc. If Nobunobu remains evil, how do negotiations with the Altana Liberation Army change? Would the resistance to the ALA have the support of the Shogun's army still? Finally, early deaths for 4 of the 5 major Shinsengumi characters: Sogo, Hijikata, Yamazaki, and Kondo. Sogo would have died from tuberculosis, as his real-life counterpart Okita Soji did, and his sister Okita Mitsuko would have survived him. So in Gintama, Sogo would have died way back during the time of the Mitsuba arc, and he would not have built the reputation or fan base he does now. That begs the question as to what kind of character Okita Mitsuba would have grown into, and if her relationship with Hijikata develops. As for Hijikata and Yamazaki, both died in battle in real life. Yamazaki in 1868 and Hijikata in 1869, while Kondo was captured and executed in 1868. If this was to happen in Gintama, Kondo and Yamazaki would have to die potentially in the same arc, and Hijikata in a following arc. Now in real life, all these figures died fighting against the Meiji Restoration, which ushered in modern Japan as we know it. while in Gintama, the Shinsengumi was eventually on the revolutionary side of Japan's change. So they would, in this alternate timeline, die on the quote-unquote good side of the fight, but die nonetheless and be unable to see Japan's birth into a modern nation. So my assumption is that Kondo and Yamazaki die in the Farewell Shinsengumi arc, and Hijikata dies in Silver Soul. For the major Shinsengumi characters, the only survivor to see the new Japan would be Saito Shimaru, whose real-life counterpart, Saito Hajime, survived the battles and lived until 1915. And in the specific case of this alternate timeline, Shinpachi, whose real-life counterpart Nagakura Shinpachi also lived into the 1910s. This scenario has most things stay the same about Gintama's Shinsengumi in particular, aside from having Shinpachi in their ranks during their most iconic moments. What changes afterwards is tougher to determine, as the aftermath of the Silver Soul arc is still ongoing. We do know that Kondo wouldn't be around to do his duty and marry the gorilla princess, which may change the diplomatic situation. Sogo isn't there to help orchestrate Katsura's fake assassination attempts, and I also imagine the Shinsengumi will play a part in dispatching the current threat in the manga. Either way, it's safe to say that it would be so weird and unsettling for us to only have Saito Shimaru when the dust settles. As awesome a character as he is, I can't imagine the series not having Sogo, Hijikata, Yamazaki, and Kondo. Well, that's my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or join my Discord channel if you like my content enough. Thanks so much for watching, and take care. Have a great day.